It is 7 o'clock, and we call to order the monthly meeting of the Meridian Library District Board of Trustees. We welcome those that are here in the room and also anybody joining us online for our meeting tonight. First item on the agenda is public comment. We always give patrons and guests an opportunity to make comments in our meetings. However, we don't have anybody signed up for comments tonight, so we'll move on to...
Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
I will note that we do have a public comment that was provided in your packet. We will address a few of those points in the course of the meeting with the job descriptions.
Thank you. When I looked earlier this week, it wasn't in the packet.
It should be in there now. It's the email that came through to you all at the end of last week.
Okay, thank you. Next is item number 3 on the agenda tonight, the consent agenda. These are action items that are considered to be routine and not likely to require discussion or debate, and we can approve these in one motion if the trustees agree. Are there any objections to approving the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair and maybe Director, is this where we've placed the job description, specifically public commentary regarding, I believe those?
No, those are on item 5 under job descriptions.
Thank you. Then no objection.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Seconded?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is item number 4, the financial report. Since we did not meet last month, we have 2 months of review on our financial reports, October and November. However, I would say, Nick, we didn't see the complete package that we're used to seeing in our financial reports, namely the balance sheet.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure why that's not in there, but I can look into it real quick.
Okay. And I guess I would just say, speaking just for myself at this point, though, I would feel more comfortable postponing this until next month if that's the case, just for the regular process to go forward and also to make sure that it's in the public record. Mm-hmm. There was the credit card dispersals and the payments. Yeah. Yeah,
I'm seeing that right now. I apologize. I thought that was in there. That's my bad. We'll have 3 months to go through in February.
Okay. So if there's a motion, we can make, if someone would like to make a motion to move to postpone item number 4 until the next meeting.
Just move to table.
Okay.
I move to table item number 4 until the next meeting.
I second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries to table. Next up, item number 5, some job descriptions tonight. 3 different job descriptions, and I believe we have some color and some details on each of those.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So before jumping into this, you already have the documents provided in your packet with the clean version and the red line edits, but I wanted to give additional context, especially in lieu of the public comment that you had received, to provide more information about this. So first off, this is what our current branch org chart is. As you can see, this is a generic version, but at the top we have our branch manager. To the sides in orange, we have the branch supervisors. And below the branch supervisors, we have the library assistants at 3 different levels. They're the same job, just different hours. So 40, 29, and 19-hour library assistants, and then 19-hour library pages. And then in the middle, in pink, are the community librarian and the youth services librarian. And then in the slightly darker blue is the associate librarian. And the number of associate librarians ranges depending on branch currently. If we go to the next slide, we'll show what we're going to be moving towards, which is not that radically different. When we look at it, we will have an adult services librarian instead of a community service or community librarian, and we'll have 2 youth services librarian. But as you can see, there's 1 less associate librarian, and to do that, we are going to make the what will end up being 4 open librarian positions available to those 10 associate librarians that we currently have. And if we go to the next, just wanted to provide some context here also with what we're talking about in terms of the positions. So library assistants are a pay grade 2, library pages, pay grade 1, pay grade 9 for the manager, and pay grade 8 for the supervisor. If we go to the next slide, we'll zoom in so it's a little easier to see. We have the branch manager at the top, pay grade 9. Our librarians are pay grade 7, and our associate librarians are a pay grade 4. So trying to put some context to the conversation. And then we broke out the differences between the job descriptions to see them a little more concisely. So as you can see, the adult services librarian will design and deliver adult and senior programs, lead adult services projects and district initiatives, provide customer service, reference, and tech help for adults and seniors, provide outreach services at community events and partner locations, and support district goals through committee leadership and cross-team coordination. Much of the same thing with youth services down below, but instead of adults, focusing on children, which means they're also working with schools, educators, and the like. And then with the associate librarian, we're going to have a little bit of differentiation here that we haven't had before, and that being the unbound associate librarian. And the difference between the two will largely come down to the associate librarians will be the ones doing the bookmobile services in the community, whereas the unbound associate librarians are really heavily kind of in charge of the providing that higher level tech support and troubleshooting that is required at Unbound. And they're kind of the go-to expert when it comes to the equipment in terms of programs and troubleshooting and reference help. And so in a nutshell, that's kind of where we're at with all of those. Happy to answer any questions, but was trying to hopefully give you a little bit more of a global view of what is in front of you tonight. So the associate librarian is just kind of doing some cleanup. The unbound associate librarian is to differentiate between the associate librarian positions at our traditional branches versus our business and tech center. And then the community librarian position will be archived and replaced with the adult services position.
Nick, can you talk about the process? How was this identified that we need to make some changes? Who was involved in the discussions? And then what led to this point, I guess, is my question.
So a lot of things led to this. One of the biggest ones is Cherry Lane is closed, and it provided us an opportunity to revisit some of the conversations we've had in the past with the positions. And because we look at all job descriptions annually at a minimum, we are really looking at how are we differentiating between the librarian position, which is a professional level position, and an associate librarian position. And when we look at the pay grade 7 versus pay grade 4, how are we creating a difference between the two positions? Because we don't want an associate librarian doing the same work as a librarian. And so it really came out from that. And then we had a 2-day meeting with the traditional branch managers, myself and Vasil, so the assistant director, and we talked about how do we use the bookmobile going forward. Because it does not live at a branch, it is now at the admin warehouse. How do we make sure that we are using it efficiently and getting it out into the public? Because as we know, that has been something that you all have instructed us to do, is to make sure that we're using the bookmobile and having it visible. And for me, looking at it and saying, well, there's no value in replacing the bookmobile if it's not being used. So we need to show in the future to replace it we need to show that it has value to the community. And if it's only going out 2 times a week, that value is just never going to show itself in any prescribable way. And so how do we do that with consistency and equity across the district? And so by changing some of the structural pieces, we're able to get the bookmobile. We will be able to get the bookmobile out more. And each of the associate librarians will have between, I'm going to do this off the top of my head, but I believe it's between 6 to 9 hours of on bookmobile time, plus driving to the warehouse. So you add another, let's say 2 hours over the course of a week. So you're looking at between 8 to 11 hours of their 40 hours that would be spent bookmobile related. And so we're able to get it out a lot more by having a dedicated team of people doing it, but it's not assigned to one single branch to be able to do that service. And so kind of spreading it out and making it more equitable, both from a staff perspective of who is working on it, but also from a community sense of being able to see their librarians out and about and being able to be more creative with how we use the bookmobile and looking at where it goes and when and how and why. So that was the genesis of how we kind of got there. Sorry,
Thank you.
a little long-winded.
Mr. Chair and Director, can you say that again, that your kind of the expectations that an associate librarian would spend 6 to 9 hours a week on the bookmobile?
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
Director Grove, just so to clarify, it's not specifically just for the giant bookmobile, it's also for Moby and the other mobile platforms, correct?
No, that is actually separate. So Moby, which is the Sprinter van, the mobile outreach bus of ideas that we'll talk about again here in a few minutes, but it is going to be a district resource. It's housed at the district warehouse also, and it will be used for programs and not for services. So the bookmobile will not be used for programs going forward. It is a mobile branch essentially. And so separating those two things out from a use standpoint also contributes to what we're doing. And so each of the branches will be tasked with using Moby at least once per quarter, but it can be any of the programmers, which for us are the adult services librarian, the 2 youth services librarian, and the associate librarian. So however they want to use it as a mobile tool to do outreach of programs, they're able to do that as a branch. But we don't have anyone prescribed to drive it exclusively or for like set stops. It'll be used ad hoc throughout the district to provide outreach programs.
Kind of a follow-on question and along the same vein, I just want to be clear that the associate librarian at grade 4 is not typically there's no barriers to entry to progress on a librarian career. Would you say that the associate librarians are generally career-minded and oriented and aspiring to move up to become youth services or adult senior librarians, or along those lines, or what are we looking at for a typical employee?
I don't know if I have a solid answer. I think anything would be an overgeneralization. I would say, however, one of the key pieces of what we have aspired to do over the years is to provide opportunities for staff to progress within the organization and provide them with the tools and the resources to be able to take that step if they so choose. And so one of the important things for me is that we keep these positions in-house as much as we can and provide opportunities for people to take that next step if they want to take that next step, to put their hat in the ring. I know a lot of our staff that have moved up over the years started at much lower positions than what they're at currently. And that's something I'm very proud of, that we've done a good job of promoting people. In Idaho, we do not have a strict requirement that some of the states have, let's say Washington or Ohio, where you have to have a master's in library science to be to have that professional librarian title. We do not have that, namely because, especially in a lot of the smaller parts of the state, you're not going to get people that have that. And in general, it's becoming less needed in a lot of, especially public librarian positions, just across the country. But it's also does have that lower barrier for entry for our staff to be able to move into the professional level of one of the librarian positions. And the associate librarian position is, in its nature, meant to be a stepping stone for people to take to go up through the process of being both front facing and program related. So,
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
Director Grove, what training do staff receive to be able to drive the bookmobile?
we have in-house training that goes along with it. No one's sent out there for quite a while before they go through it. I will say that the bookmobile is a 22,000 pound vehicle, so it does not meet the requirements for a CDL driver's permit, and we've confirmed that with our iCrimp insurance, and gone through all the steps with that. But we have training that people go through, and they are paired with very experienced drivers, so that they feel comfortable being able to get out there and do that. I think I have at least one person in the room who's been a driver in the past. She might be able to give a little more clarity if we need.
Would you let Josh drive it?
You know what? I'm not ready to repair or replace this unit. So, maybe in a year.
22,000 pounds? That sounds good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
Director Grove.
Sorry to be flippant.
It's all right. No, it made me laugh. So just to clarify, there's no extra insurance costs to ensure that our trained drivers can drive the bookmobile.
There is additional insurance cost, but it is for anyone who does driving as a component of their job in terms of delivery of items. So our anyone who drives the bookmobile, anyone who does home delivery has a higher, I'm going to use an older term, but we don't use them anymore, but is state insurance fund, the workers' comp, I guess, is there's codes that are associated with it. And so there's a higher code for anyone who delivers materials. And so that's why we can't just have somebody just go and deliver without having their insurance code changed. But it's not for a training piece based on the insurance, it's based on the job tasks. So,
Trustee Castle, do you have a question?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Chair and Director. So a question I have for the director here goes, so those 6 to 9 hours, that's drive time spent on location. I'm thinking of similar things to where you guys were at the 8th Street Park, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you'd set up a location there, right? Is that kind of what you're envisioning for that?
yes, but we do not have a current stop location for the spring yet. So that will be forthcoming. But the general, I have an outlined plan that would put us on the road 24 hours a week, I think, or somewhere in there, and trying to get us throughout the entire community.
The us in that is the greater district, right? Not just a singular employee or a group, right? When you say us on 24 hours, what are you trying to describe?
So the bookmobile will have 24 hours of public stops.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Nick, so if I'm an associate librarian and the bookmobile is parked at the administration office, and I'm guessing that associate librarian would be working at one of the branches other than that time, so they would have their schedule for the weekend. It would say on Tuesday afternoon, go to the admin office and hop on the bookmobile and go.
Correct. So how we do our scheduling is every hour of a person's day is mapped out of where they're going. So be that at their desk working on emails or at the front desk helping patrons or on the bookmobile or in a program or in a meeting, all of those hours for our branch staff are mapped out in our new scheduling software that is wrapping up as we speak. And so, yes, it would be on their in the scheduling software, but also on their work email calendar to let them know where they're at. And we'll have these things planned out, months in advance.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Director Grove, is the bookmobile an automatic transmission or a manual transmission?
It is an automatic transmission
Okay.
with and it uses diesel. And the diesel is tied into the generator directly. And so the generator and the engine both use the same diesel tank. And the diesel generator is the bane of our existence. But yes.
So, Nick, there were some concerns brought by a member of the staff, and without getting into any personal details or violating any confidentiality or HR employment issues, talk about that person's concerns in general terms, if you would, and if there's any color you want to give us just as a board to understand that.
I'd say a vast majority of what I spent the last 20 minutes or so talking about covers a good portion of what is brought up. Anything that is individual in nature is confidential on our behalf.
Yep.
We are not able to speak to anybody's personal stuff, even if it goes out through the process of which they disclose things. We are not able to speak on those matters. I will say, just in general, we follow all state and local and federal laws, and work very closely with our employment attorney on anything that requires accommodation or further evaluation. So,
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Director,
Yes.
talk to us a little bit about about the accommodation process, right? So say someone says to me, hey, this, is a change to my job function for XYZ reasons. I may not be able to, fulfill that change. How does that work in the current structure? How does a person go about saying, who do they raise that to? Their HR rep, their manager? How's that function?
Garrett, hold on just a second. I'd say that kind of crosses a line into something that's not an action item tonight. And I think perhaps maybe it's a great topic for a future meeting, perhaps.
Mr. Chair, I could answer that in really broad strokes.
Okay.
If you so choose. So as it's part of our handbook that we had you all look at, if it's brought to anybody's attention in any management position, we refer them to HR. HR will then refer them to their medical provider. When the medical provider has provided such documentation, it gets reviewed by HR and our legal counsel on what future steps need to be taken or not taken.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion on these three job descriptions?
I'd like to open the floor to discussion, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
So I'm likely to vote in favor of still allowing these job descriptions, though I'm sympathetic to the public commentary and what they're talking about here, which is this concept of my role has changed over time, right? There may be some part of it by which I feel that I can no longer fulfill for XYZ reasons, right? And that's a fairly normal thing. And I do want to, I think, just be clear of, first off, that occurs, right? Definitely occurs at my own work where, gosh, you go 2 years and suddenly the whole thing is a very different structure than what it was previously, right? That being said, the initiatives that we have taken on as the library, I definitely think that the bookmobile is a wildly valuable outreach function, right? And in my own life, in my own world, where to even get to the board position role, I had to do a ton of outreach. At least my view goes, if you're not doing that, you can oftentimes get left behind in the, wake of indifference that doesn't see what your value is. And I think it's important that we continue to reach out to the community, show them that we're here, show them that we're available to support. And I think that that's a mutually beneficial relationship for both us and the community as a whole. So for those reasons, that's why I'm going to support the job description changes, is because while I know that there can be individual exceptions, I'm hopeful and desiring that people would go through the expected process of reaching out to your manager or HR in those cases and go from there. So that's my review and thoughts here.
Director Grove.
Mr. Chair, just to add, currently the associate librarians and in the associate librarian job description itself, there is the expectation of driving the bookmobile. The current four employees that are associate librarians at Cherry Lane drive the bookmobile every week. And so this is just clarifying and making sure that it's consistent throughout the entirety of the district.
Nick, that jogged my memory. When you and I visited about the agenda a few days ago, you'd mentioned about one of the things that these new descriptions do is it opens up additional positions and advancement opportunities. Did you cover that tonight?
I did. I might have gone fast.
Say it again, if you would, please.
Yeah. Dan, could you go back 4 slides? I can't count that fast. Yeah, one. So this is actually go back one more. So this is our current structure. It's a little harder to see, I know, but if you just look at pink is librarian.
Mhm.
The darker of the two blues is associate librarian. This is different for each branch right now. Cherry Lane currently has 4 of the associate librarians. Orchard Park has 2 associate librarians, and Pinnacle has 3 associate librarians. And how we had structured that in the past was, one, that's kind of what we had inherited over the years with the structure of positions and who was in them. But also Cherry Lane had at the time both the bookmobile and the sprinter as part of its fleet at Cherry Lane. Pinnacle had Tiny as part of its oversight. And because Orchard Park didn't have one of those additional services, when they had lost one of their associate librarians through someone retired, quit.
Attrition.
Attrition. That's the word. We just didn't backfill that because they didn't have one of those additional services. But going forward, because those will all be kind of brought under the umbrella of district, and then kind of sharing that out, it will balance these teams out. So if we go to the new, we will have 3 librarians and 2 associate librarians, and that will be consistent at all 3 of our traditional branches. And so currently, currently it includes the associate librarian at Unbound also. When I say that we have 10, we have 10 associate librarians that will be available to apply if they so choose, starting tomorrow. There will be 4 librarian positions. So the 3 additional youth services positions, 1 at Cherry, 1 at Orchard Park, 1 at Pinnacle, and then the open adult services position that is at Cherry Lane from that had attrition earlier in the fiscal year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Knudsen.
I will be voting in favor of the associate librarian changes because I do support the equity approach and making sure that we're as flexible as we can be to meet the needs of our community. And also, I appreciate you pointing out that driving vehicles for delivery or outreach purposes was already in the job description.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion for these, and we'll do them one by one.
I move that we approve the associate librarian job description.
Thank you. Second, we have a second further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Keep going.
All right,
If you like.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
I move that we approve the Unbound Associate Librarian job description.
thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I move that we approve the Community Librarian job description.
Second.
we have a motion and a second for that one. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item number 6, director's updates.
All right. Let me pull up my notes. So the seal is watching online, and he'll probably chat me if I mess any of the parts up that he's helped prepare. But I will do my best to go through the pieces that we have. So along with your agenda tonight, I did give you the state report that has, I think there's 34 pages of statistics that we have to fill out every year. There's like 400 lines to the whole thing. It's a little tedious, but we're going to start sharing out some of that data a little bit more throughout the year. And so just wanted to kind of highlight some of the pieces that we have for you. So by the numbers, when we filled this out, so this is typically due at the end of the calendar year. We had 104 staff. I think currently we're below 100. I think we're at 97 through attrition and changes and things like that. But the card holders, we had 54,305, which is an addition of 34, which doesn't seem that much, but we did a lot of purging of accounts also that had expired. So a card expires after 3 years of non-renewal. And so numbers are a little in flux. We did have 72 volunteers that did 3,400 hours of volunteer time across the district. And even though we were closed at Cherry Lane starting in August, which reduced the number of public service hours, we actually had more public or library visits in 2025 than we did in 2024. So even losing, almost 3,000 hours of being open, we were still able to do a phenomenal job of getting people into our facilities. Library collection. So again, all these numbers are a little off because of Cherry Lane's closing. And so we didn't add as many items this last year as we did the year before. But that was really due in part, or in large part, to closing Cherry. We didn't want to add a whole bunch of things and then have to move them because at the beginning of the year, we didn't know that we would have the warehouse that we have. And so decisions had to be made, and that's why you see a lot of the withdrawal numbers, a big difference there. And I would also say with the withdrawal, I think we've talked about this in the past, but Cherry Lane was overstuffed. It was over what should have been in the collection from a healthy collection standpoint. And so we were weeding down because of moving out of the building, but also as part of good collection maintenance, trying to get it to the proper size in the building. And now that we have the warehouse, we'll be able to have that proper collection size in our buildings while still having a very large collection available to the public. And then materials held, that went down, but again, a lot of that can be attributed to Cherry Lane. Circulation, we went up about 20,000 overall, but the physical items went down, whereas the electronic items went up by a significant amount, I would add. And so I'm not worried about the physical items, especially because we were closed for over 3 months at Cherry Lane. But seeing those electronic numbers go up is something that will more likely than not continue to hold as we go forward. All the fun money things. So despite our, growing of the operating budget, our levy rate continues to go down. And that's because Meridian's growing. As we've said before, if we were able to actually levy at the rate that is statutorily allowed by a library district, it'd be just shy of doubling what we currently have as a budget. But we can only grow so fast, and I think we're doing a really good job of staying within the means of what we have and growing to meet the needs of our community. Our grand total revenue, 11,000, and then we've talked about it before, but the total staff expenditures is a huge piece of our annual budget. We're typically in most years somewhere between 65 and 72%. I believe I should have done the math on this, but I'm pretty sure we're at about 68% with the staff expenditures. Operating expenditures is kind of everything that's not staff or collections, and we have the collection numbers over there that came in at almost 800. We did purposely curtail that, obviously, like I said, because of Cherry Lane and making sure that we were doing a good job of building our collection properly without having to buy things and figure out how to store them unnecessarily. And now to the Cherry Lane renovation. So if you have driven by Cherry Lane, this picture no longer exists because it's just flat dirt. This is where the annex used to be. And it is down. And if you were to step inside, these are some of the pictures. I know that it's a little hard to see all of them, but I wanted to give a whole bunch without having 1,000 slides. So I just did 3 slides worth, but this is what the inside looks like. So the top left corner is where the large conference room used to be, which will now be the children's room. The bottom left corner is the old children's room, which will now be the teen room. In the middle is the big domed area. And so you can see all the cuts to get electrical and plumbing to different parts of the building. And the ceiling cap is off. And then the top right corner is the old children's room looking towards the circ desk with the wall torn out. So you can see all the way to the back now. And then the bottom right is the old, this would be kind of like nonfiction area on the east side of the building where it'll be north of the new entrance. The top left, I think that's like going left of that cone is where the old lobby was. And so that's between like the lobby and the bathroom area. I just thought it was cool because the big like tunnels that are down there for the equipment was really cool to see. I nerded out because I don't really know what any of it means, so I have to ask Dan all the time. But it looked cool. The bottom left is the old large program room, and it is also to the right of that ladders where we have the new opening created for us involuntarily last fall. And then the middle is again looking towards the back of what used to be the back of the library, but will now be the front of the library. And the metal piece in the top right of that corner is the staff offices, and this is where the new entryway will be created, right here. And then the other one's just kind of looking up into the rafters of the dome, and then the other one is the bottom right is in the old children's room, which would again be the teen room, looking out towards the large domed area. I'll get to the middle one last. Just more pictures kind of from around. So both of the bottom or left ones are the old children's space, which will again be the new teen space. The top right is what used to be the staff area. So So you're actually looking kind of towards where my office used to be in the back there. And that'll be the adult nonfiction going forward. And then there will also be a reservable like meeting room back there. And then the bottom right, not complete. Oh, that is the large conference room looking out towards Cherry Lane. And that will be right there. Specifically will probably be almost where the wellness room will be going forward. Now to the middle picture. This is my heartburn right here. This is up in the ceiling above the previous children's room. So all of the pictures on the left there, this is that ladder, us crawling up there and looking. And I'm not good with construction. That's why we have people that know what they're talking about that point things out to us. But you can kind of tell that beam there on the right isn't as straight as you would think it should be. That is not uncommon in this part of the building or in on the other side where the children's space will be going forward. So what that means is we have to bring some experts in to fix the trusses. To fix trusses is not the easiest thing from what they've told me. And we have to take the roof off in those sections to repair and replace some of the trusses. And then in doing so, we have to put the roof back on and then re-shingle the entirety of the roof. And so we are looking at a significant unexpected cost. That unexpected cost is still unknown to us in terms of a dollar figure, but it is much better than originally feared. However, because of this, I think I told you, actually, no, I haven't. Oh, when we last met, we will not be able to go forward with the plan. I guess it might be a little strong my board, but plan to purchase the cafe from Brighton next to Pinnacle. We were already on a pretty razor thin margin there, and this is probably going to be close to I hesitate to really say a number, but it's a roundabout number. I won't be surprised, I guess, if it comes in at $1 million to fix this truss situation. So we still have the funds, obviously, to do it, but it does mean that we can't go forward with a Pinnacle Cafe, as I had mentioned, wanting to do back in November. Yeah, that's what I have on that. And then we'll get to more fun things, though. I probably could.
Do we want to pause?
Do you want to pause? Yeah.
While we're talking about the Cherry Lane, I'm sure there's some questions. I know a little more of the details here than others may, so
Mr. Chair,
Trustee Knuth, go ahead.
Director Grove, the roof issue, is that going to delay the timeline any?
Yes.
How much do we know?
Yes. I have no idea.
Okay.
We have the experts coming in to take a look at it. It's a sizable change. Having to take, they call them hips. I don't know. I still don't really fully understand. They have to take parts of the roof off and put the big trusses in. So we hadn't planned on doing that, and that will take a lot of time, especially if they have to create new trusses for us because they're all custom built. You can't just go get one off the shelf. But it's not just that, it's the ripple effect of what that causes, because what happens is they're not able to work on certain parts of the building because they can't work in that area until the trusses are fixed. And so it's going to have a cascading effect. And I would say we're in the magnitude of at least a few months difference than what they had originally planned. So this kind of puts us still within that time frame of what I had originally thought, which was probably early 2027 of being able to open versus late 2026. That's all subject to change. Obviously, as we go through, a remodel is a lot harder than a new build. But my guess, without any true data in front of me, would be we're looking at probably spring of 27 opening versus winter of 26.
What's the level of confidence that it's just those two areas?
High.
Okay.
They spend a significant amount of time up in the rafters, and it's both then the general contractor, the structural engineers, and then a truss specialist that have been up there examining what needs to be done and how it can be done.
Okay, great, thanks. Thanks, Nick. Any other questions on that before we go on to the next thing? Keep us posted on timeline and dollars if anything changes.
Yep. As soon as I know, I will let you all know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Please go on.
All right. More fun things. So in December, we had 1,600 items that went out from the warehouse. And then those checked out 1,700 times. And as Jenny pointed out in her report, that was due to renewal of items. But excuse me, the graph that she put in the report was really interesting to see where things are going throughout the consortium. So as you can see, a vast majority of it are going to our locations, being that dark blue, the yellowy color, and the green. Those are all us, either home delivery or Pinnacle Orchard Park. But we had things going all throughout the consortium, and really excited about the warehouse. We had some people from Boise Public Library come visit the warehouse today and pick our brain on how we're doing things. And I think we're making some big strides. Again, if any of the board wants to come take a look, just give me a call, give me a text, and happy to give you a tour of the space. And as I said earlier, we'd talk about Moby again. As Erin put in her report, they did, with the foundation, a campaign to raise money for the Moby, which stands for the Mobile Outreach Bus of Ideas. I don't think the ideas part got on there, but it's a campaign that the foundation has taken up, and they've raised significant amount of money and continue to do so to equip the Sprinter van with equipment for programs. I think one of the things that we'll be looking at doing in the near future is doing a refresh of some of the available tech equipment, being iPads and computers that will be available on that vehicle. And staff participated in the annual Winter Lights Parade in Meridian Downtown in early December, an annual tradition. And they got wet, but they had fun. At least they said they had fun. And that's everything that I had in the director's report. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Go ahead, Garrett.
Mr. Chair, Director, the first question I have is, do we expect an opposing increase in the number of items that will collect in 2026? The reason I ask about this is I think of it like, cool, 2024, to 2025, I have a large purge of materials, right? For lack of a better word. Am I expecting to have a similar increase on the other side?
Mr. Chair, trustees, kind of. We will be adding to the collection, but a lot of it will also be kind of watching how the timing for Cherry Lane comes along. That's where you're going to see a large increase of purchasing, because originally the plan had been to just put all of Cherry Lane's collection into storage and then move it back into Cherry Lane when we reopen. But because we now have the warehouse, we will try and keep a lot of the items in the warehouse and restock Cherry Lane. So the warehouse will become much more empty, but the more we can raise through the foundation and strategically make monetary moves over now, with the delay actually benefiting us, is that we will be able to buy some items and put them into the storage collection at the warehouse this fiscal year, and then we'll be able to buy a larger opening day collection in fiscal year 27, which starts in October, to be able to round out the collection at Cherry Lane. So yes, you'll see some added, but you're really going to see a much higher added as we get really close to opening Cherry Lane, because even if we were to buy everything for Cherry Lane now, we would have nowhere to put it, because we'd have 55,000 items that would have nowhere to go. And so and that's if we could replace absolutely everything that was going into Cherry. So yes, you'll see more adding, but there will be some stagger to it as well. Also, the numbers show us that despite having high physical item circulation, we still have a huge demand for electronic. And the unfortunate thing is it costs way more to do the electronic piece than it does to do the physical item piece. And there's just a lot of nuance that goes into that. And we have to balance out the purchasing of physical items with the demand that the public has on our electronic items.
Mr. Chair, Director, that was actually goes well into my next question. When you guys define electronic item, maybe a little bit more definition of what you mean there. Are we talking a DVD as an electronic item, or are we saying purely electronic, like I think of like the New York Times subscription or something like this?
That's a Chair, Trustee. That's a great question. I would say, again, this gets really into the weeds of it, but in your statistics packet that I gave you today, it'll break it out a little bit more. And what you can see is DVDs, Blu-rays, those are all considered physical items. When we talk about magazines, those are going to be the same as newspapers, and those are going to be periodicals. So in 2024, we had 67 periodicals. In 2025, we had so in 2024, we had 67 periodicals. In 2025, we had 64 periodicals. So we went down a little bit, but some of that's just, magazines are kind of in and out and aren't great at being able to maintain right now in our systems. But when we're talking about subscriptions, those are completely different. So like the New York Times, while we might pay for it out of our collection development budget, it is actually not considered in any of our circulation stats because it is access to a subscription service and not to a checkout item. When we talk about electronic items, it's really a bad terminology, but essentially what that means is ebooks and e-audiobooks, which are at this point exclusively through Overdrive/Libby. This is a Libby app. That's where we're seeing that those numbers come into play mostly. Oh, and Canopy. So Canopy being our movie service that is a subsidiary of Overdrive that allows credit-based use of videos. So you're allotted like 12 credits a month to check out movies. If you check out a 1 credit, 5-minute story time book versus like a brand new bestseller that's like 5 or 6 credits, you get that. So those actually do go into our digital circulation numbers, or electronic circulation numbers. Whereas if we had a service that we had like 4 years ago with Hoopla, again, those are checkouts, but those checkout numbers got a little wonky. And so sometimes they would go in as a subscription number. Sometimes they would go in as a digital checkout number. It is messy, is the cleanest way to say it. But now our numbers are very clean, but they're also very pointed at saying where those dollars are going based on need.
Thank you.
Trustee Knudsen.
Mr. Chair, Director Grove. It's not really a question, it's more of it's a comment where I just want to say thank you to the staff that provide the outreach and for the solid programming. It's really encouraging to see that even during the holidays when people tend to do more things with their family or a different community, that they're still showing up at the library. So thank you very much.
Very good. That takes us to item number 7 on our agenda tonight, Guiding Principles Plan for 2026 through 2030. Looks like we have some guests here.
So as they're getting set up, I will say kind of I won't step on your toes too much, but we have Whitney and Jen. They are from Cherry Lane, but they have been reassigned to work on Dan's team in district resources during the Cherry Lane closure. And they got saddled with taking on doing our strategic plan work. And so we have been talking about the strategic plan for a very long time. With the decision to do it in-house, that has been good, but it's also been challenging. But because we had staff that were not only available because of the Cherry Lane closure, but also proficient in being able to take on this large task and I would say do it with a high level of aplomb. They're here to present what we have come up with. And instead of doing a strategic plan, we've gone to guiding principles, and they're going to walk us through how we got there and why and what that looks like. So I'll hand it over.
Okay. Thank you. So yes, I'm Whitney. I am a supervisor over at Cherry Lane, and Jen is in LA. And Nick had asked me to help kind of lead the strategic plan process, and Jen was gracious enough to want to go along with it with me. And so we want to talk about how we got here to what we're calling guiding principles. So what we did is we started out with a traditional environmental scan, which is where we take a deep dive at looking at Meridian today. So demographics, looking at our library and how we measure up to libraries of similar size, some getting into some of those details. And then we did a big community survey. We had over 1,100 community members take our survey, which was very exciting in the short period of time that we had it open. We also did a separate partner survey. So community partners are those that partner with us. So the Birds of Prey, West Ada School District, we wanted to hear from them as well. And then we did a separate staff survey, and we had 26 staff members do that, which is actually pretty good considering the number that we have. You may have seen it. We did a lot of work to try to market this survey to our community. We did a lot of social media, fun videos, memes, stuff like that. We got out to some big community events too, like Oktoberfest, where we got a really good chunk and got to talk to our community more in person and got them to take our surveys. We did flyers. We had some tabling events at Albertsons as well to really get the word out. So I want to highlight that because it wasn't just Jen and I doing a lot of that. That was a bunch of other staff members involved in doing the outreach to get out the word for it. Then we also hosted 2 community focus groups. We did bring in a consultant to help us kind of organize and put that together. And then we had 4 in-house staff focus groups to get further feedback on the guiding principles once we had that. And those were really, really awesome and enlightening. We had over 100 community members say they wanted to participate in the focus groups. Obviously, we couldn't do that. So we ended up with around 35, right? Something like that. But it was great. The community wanted to talk and be heard, and that was really exciting for us. With our community partners, we wanted to do a traditional focus group with them, but as you can imagine, getting a bunch of different people from different backgrounds and places in one room was not really going to happen. So we pivoted to doing one-on-one interviews. Jen led a lot of those, and we did about 11 of those with our community partners. And then we did a whole review. We took all of the feedback, all of the data, all the stuff from the focus groups to create what we are calling our guiding principles. We'll have focuses and tasks, and we'll get into those a little bit later, but that is a culmination of all of that. We really wanted this to be steeped in community feedback and voices, and hear what they want and where they're at today, and not just based on our assumptions, but what we think they want and where they're at. So I'm going to just briefly touch these because we're going to go kind of one by one and kind of how we got there. So we have 6 guiding principles for 2026 to 2030 for our strategic plan year. Build awareness, foster community connections, nurture staff culture, create welcoming environments, support learning, and enhance collections.
Okay, so we wanted to start off with build awareness, diving deeper into how this came about. I think, excuse me, we are probably the most excited about this one. Something that came from the focus groups and the community survey was that patrons just largely aren't aware of the services we provide beyond just offering books because we're a library. And there were many responses in the community survey where we just wanted to say, yes, we do provide that service. We have that program. We do all of these things that you guys want from us. We just can't, for some reason, you aren't seeing that we are already providing these services. So we wanted to dive deeper and look at why they aren't seeing that we are providing their services. Where is that disconnect happening? Where are they going to look for information? And why aren't they seeing that we are there trying to fill that gap as well? Even some frequent users, the people that come in once a month, once a day, our frequent flyers, our regulars that we love to see, even they aren't aware of some of the more regular programs that we are providing. And they come in and they say, hey, I have my kids here. I want to do story time, and that Tuesday morning time slot just doesn't work for me. It's like, oh, did you hear that we have a Saturday program or a Thursday night program that you could attend? And they have no idea. And it's just so enlightening to hear that they're not seeing those promotional materials that we're trying to provide to them. So we want to take that deep dive and see where that disconnect is happening so we can share out more of our programs and our services so we can build that gap as well. And then for, next slide, thank you. This one, as Whitney said, I had the pleasure of speaking with about 11 of our community partners, and I was able to hear from them where they feel our partnership is at, what we can do to foster that relationship and continue to build that partnership. A great thing that we heard from them is that they love us and they want to continue to partner with us. They think that the library is a great outlet for reaching a customer base that they don't normally see. We really have a fortunate position to have people just walking in the door already just to find books. Like we don't need to go out and search for a base of people to just walk in the door and see us and know who we are. We're a library. A lot of people are going to come see us anyway. So partners are looking for that connection to be like, hey, you already have a base. Can we use you as a conduit to reach out to more people to say, hey, we are also here and we also want to provide these resources. Another part of the feedback was that they want to deepen the communication part and also just more have a reciprocal loop relationship. Whereas, yes, we have that event connection, especially with Birds of Prey, but they also want to hear more about what we're doing so they can share out with their patrons and customers as well. The Birds of Prey people specifically were very sweet, and they were like, yeah, we just want to do more. Whatever that looks like, we just want to continue working with you and do more. So we want to look at what that would entail, and especially with the new job descriptions, what that's going to look like, and who would be in charge of fostering those relationships. I'll let Whitney take this one.
The next one is nurture staff culture. I think everyone knows that staff are really important to any kind of business or thing. A library is just kind of a building full of books. Our staff gives it that heart, right? Gets people coming back. A very majority of positive stuff we got from our survey was about our staff. We had staff members getting called out for like the great work that they do or at a program, or just like they come in and the staff always smiles at me. And so that was really important for us to hear and super encouraging. And so we just want to make sure that's something that we're looking at every year, as well as making sure our staff feel supported and we have that really good culture with them. We had a staff survey as well, and then we had our focus groups too. And some of the things that were highlighted as staff would like some better communication. They think there's some gaps with like top-down communication and then bottom-up communication as well. So figuring out what we can do there. They just want some clearer ways to share ideas and concerns. And admin team has already done a lot of steps and movement towards improving our communication. So it's just kind of building off of what we've already been working on and really making sure our staff feel supported. And that way they stay with us longer and they can continue to do the great work they do for our community. This next one is create welcoming environments. So maintaining accessible spaces that respond to community needs. I think everyone knows with Cherry Lane closing, we've had a lot of feedback about like the design of Cherry Lane and stuff like that. And in the survey, we also got a lot of that, as well as some of the focus groups about what the design will look like. But with the survey and then in the focus groups, we wanted to dive a little bit deeper to what they mean. The word of the whole survey was like cozy. They want like a cozy vibe and stuff, but like, what does that mean? So in the focus groups, we got to kind of deep dive into that. And it kind of boils down to they just want to feel invited and welcome in the library and feel like they can stay and have some time there. We also, in the focus groups, we talked about, we get feedback of where they wish the library was more quiet and they want to study and come do their work. But then we also have the people who are like, we love that we can bring our kids here and they can be active and loud. And so we kind of posed the question in the focus groups of like, we have these two different types of patrons that come and use the library. Do you think we should provide spaces for both of them? Do you think they should exist together? Can they exist together? And overwhelmingly, the patrons were like, yes, it should be for both. We want it to be for both. And so just us figuring out ways to continue that flexibility for all the patrons for the different uses that they want from us. And what was really cool for one of the focus groups, we did mood boarding. They got to get magazines and kind of build like what their version of like cozy and a welcoming space was to give us some ideas and insight. And most of the people were using like, you know, like textures and chairs and warm tones and stuff like that. We had one gentleman come up and he used a bunch of like National Geographic magazine cutouts. And so there's like space and galaxies and stuff. And everyone got to invite up to share why they put that on their mood board. And he got up and he was like, so mine doesn't look like everyone else's. He's like, because cozy means different things for different people. And so he highlighted Orchard Park and the sensory room. And he's like, so cozy for one person might look like all of these things in these places, but for another person, it's really overwhelming and overstimulating. And so he just wanted to point out how much he appreciated Orchard Park being very different than some of the other spaces and how that is actually really welcoming for other people. So I just thought that was really cool. I'm getting a little emotional because I have a nephew who is on the spectrum and he's nonverbal. And so it means a lot to me that people see the work that we're doing with it. Because I know sometimes we get criticism about certain designs and stuff, but it was really cool to hear the patrons kind of get it and that we have different libraries for different people. So that was really cool. And something that we should always look at, right? We want to make sure we're creating environment, like welcoming environments. This one. The next one is support learning. That seems kind of like a duh, right? We're a library, we should come in and support learning. But that's kind of why it's on here, right? It's something we should always be looking at. Patrons expressed wanting more opportunities to learn new things, whether that was like new tech, a new skill. They really were interested in a lot lifelong learning. They pointed out in a survey specifically that they thought we did really well with early literacy, but then they pointed out like, well, what about seniors or what about teens? We still think early literacy is important, so don't get rid of that, but also what about all these other things that we want to see more of? So that was really cool as well. And they had a lot of interest in like intergenerational programming. And so there's a lot of ideas that they were throwing out, some of which we do have. So we had to kind of enlighten them of some of that, but others had some really cool ideas for that we could go forward with. And we just want to make sure we're supporting people about where they're at. It doesn't necessarily have to be where they're at age-wise, developmentally, all of those things. So we want to make sure we're considering all of that every year as well.
One other thing related to that. They were really cognizant. They were really cognizant of staff feeling because some librarians, for example, feel like the onus is on them to create the program and also present the program. So how can they have all those skills necessary to create those programs that the public is looking for? And immediately they were all saying, no, we want you to connect us with other community people and have those presenter-led program. So it's not all on you guys. They do not expect the librarians to be the experts, which I think was really just really, really nice to hear, and that they're thinking of the librarians and the staff, and that they know that they don't need to come to us for all of the answers, but some of them, I think, when it comes to research, I suppose. Okay, next one. I'm really excited about this one. As at least Yes, sorry. At least Jeff is aware. I used to work in material services, and I learned so much about what happens in the back end of our collection development. And it's so fascinating to me, and I love sharing that out with staff members and patrons. And I learned through the community survey and through the focus groups that there's a large disconnect with knowing how the collection development works. And patrons are almost voracious in wanting to learn how that process happens, and so are staff, so that way they can explain it. So with this focus, we are hoping to dive deep into what we can share about how collection development works. But also, one of the biggest themes that came out from the survey was that patrons just want more books. But of course, they're always going to say, we just want more books. We want more books. We want to see those shelves being fully stocked, but we want to figure out what that means. So later this year, we are going to have a more narrow focus survey of just collections to see, okay, yes, you want more books. What does that mean? And where can material services direct their funding to, so that way they can fill those gaps that patrons are looking for.
And if you can go back really quick, Dan, it feels like a duh to have collections and books as part of it. But like Jen said, in the survey, they really wanted us to remember that they are about the books. They are here for the books. I think we talk a lot about programming and other things we have. That was by and far not like the most thing they were concerned about. They really wanted us to remember it's the materials and the things that they want. So again, it's a duh thing for us, but we can kind of get lost in the weeds with some of the other things that are going on. And so we want to just make sure that we're kind of grounded in what we were founded with, which is books and materials. Okay, so I want to talk about how this process is kind of look. How can our strategy become like our day-to-day work? So we have our guiding principles, which we're considering our foundation. These are going to be consistent year to year and hopefully not changing much. These really guide how we approach our work. And then with the guiding principles, we're going to look at these annually. And then we are going to create what we're calling focus areas. We figured these out. They're anchored in the guiding principles. Now, they can be anchored and these focuses can like hit on all 6 of them, or maybe 2 or 3. But the idea is that they're foundation in one of those or all of them as much as possible. And then this helps us be responsive to evolving community needs because we're looking at this yearly, right? So a traditional strategic plan, we do the 5 years, we do the things, we have a task, maybe we get some of them, maybe we don't. And then the 5 years we look at it. Or sometimes other, not us necessarily, but sometimes we do it, we create it, we don't really look at it again until 5 years and we're like, oh no, we have to do this. This makes it, we have some accountability that every year we're going to be doing this process. And we're going to be looking at it. And then it gets us flexibility to be able to change things too as the year goes on, or what community needs come forth. And then from those focus areas, we're going to have the tasks. So these are the tangible items, the things that we're going to do to get our focus areas accomplished. It's really going to outline how we get the work accomplished, but support all the focus areas as well. And then I'll give you a little bit of a more visual breakdown of what that looks like in this next slide. So you have a focus area, again, anchored in our guiding principles, and then branched out, you're going to have the different tasks to get this focus area accomplished. It could look like 6 I have here as an example, but it could be 2 or 3 tasks. It really just depends on what we decide to look at for the year.
And then going even more broad, as Whitney said, this is going to be a yearly process. So starting out, we will be reviewing the principles and the status of those guiding principles. And then from there, we're going to draft the next year's tasks and focuses. Once those are drafted, we send them to staff. We want staff to have as much buy-in in this process as possible, so that way they are aware of where we're at during the year, how the guiding principles are working for us, and what needs to change, if anything. And this would be an opportunity for staff to provide feedback on how the tasks went, any updates that need to happen, and if we need to carry that task into next year as well, if something didn't get accomplished. Once we have all the feedback, everything is allocated and analyzed, we would take it to the board for approval. And after that, we would make any adjustments if necessary, finalize everything. And then once it's all analyzed and ready to go, we would present our final plan for that year to staff at that next staff day in February. And then I think that is all. We are open to any questions should you have them.
Mr. Chair, could I add real quick? So with the six guiding principles, we'll build out those focus areas for each year. We've already identified 3 focus areas for 2026, and then we've outlined some pieces that we'll be working on over the next month before Staff Day, which is February 16th. But those focus areas for 2026 won't be part of what is the action item for tonight, but just to give greater context, we have 6 guiding principles, but we have 3 focus areas for 2026. And those are going to be collections, communication, and culture.
Customer service.
Customer service.
Customer service.
Sorry, I knew it was. I knew the first 2 letters, and I was
There's 3 C's. It's a little confusing. Yeah.
customer service.
Nick came in with the 3 C's. It's very brilliant.
I almost had it. Yeah, that's right. We've looked at this a lot. So collections, communication, customer service. Those will be our 3 focus areas. And then from those 3 focus areas, we'll have a smattering of between, I think, 3 to 5 tasks that branch out from there. But what we wanted to make sure that we didn't do is have a strategic plan that has 45 things on it. And some of them, we've had it in the past. I've seen it in other people's strategic plans where it's really checkmark things like open unbound. Like, okay, well, we were going to do that anyway. Like, that's not really a strategic step, right? So making sure that what we're doing is not just what we're already doing. Like, have a story time. That's not a strategic goal, but have a story time at the park for young parents. That might be something that's a little more like in line with whatever we're trying to do. So having things that are both static with the guiding principles, but dynamic with each year and how we go about getting to those focus areas. So didn't mean to completely step on your desk,
No,
but
thank you for
thought I'd give a little additional context.
Whitney and Jen, thank you for coming. Questions and comments from trustees,
Mr. Chair,
please.
Whitney and Jen, with the 6 guiding principles, that makes a lot of sense to me. And then Director Grove, you mentioned that for 2026, there'll be 3 focus areas. Will there eventually be more focus areas, or will you try and maintain each annual set of focus areas to about 3?
Excuse me. That's the goal. We want to keep it as simple as possible, as Nick has reiterated to us. Keep it as very simple, and we wanted to make it digestible for staff as well. We've realized in the past, in looking at the previous 5-year plan, that when you ask staff, they had no idea what goals were even there because it was never looked at. So we're hoping that with the static 5 principles and the around 3 to 4 focuses for each year, I think we'll keep it simplified enough for staff to keep in their minds as they work. But it'll also depend on what we have planned for that year.
And I said 6, but there are 5 guiding principles.
There are 6.
There are 6.
Okay.
There are 6.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
Thank you.
Garrett, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Director, can you guys give me a little bit more on what's the difference between a guiding principle versus a focus area? And I guess the motive of my question here goes, great, I could have guiding principles, I could have focus areas, but those should theoretically wrap to a guiding principle. So a little bit more clarity there.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the guiding principles, if you think of them a little bit more in the sense of if they were values as well. So making sure these all came out of direct community feedback, right? We wanted to make sure that this is something that our community is asking for, and it's something that's going to ground our work. And really the difference is you get the guiding principles a little more philosophical and stuff that we want to make sure we remember. And then the focuses get a little bit more detailed of like, what is the actual thing that is going to help accomplish bringing awareness, the nurturing the staff culture, the supporting the learning. So getting to some very tangible, specific things. And then the tasks are even more tangible, the action items to these focuses. And kind of going back to Trustee Laura's question about, sorry, now I'm losing my place here. But we came up with about 16 different focus areas, and we had to